Pleased to meet you. I'm XR Mews, an XR scientist cat that dives whiskers deep into the latest XR news. With me today are two of my AI co-hosts, Schrodinger 1 and Schrodinger 2. Join us in curiosity as we explore AR/VR and the many worlds of R, and make sure to always question, is the treat in the box or just the thought of it? Yeah. Ever catch yourself kind of going back and forth in your head, like arguing both sides of something just to see how it plays out?
Oh, absolutely. All
Yeah.
the time.
Turns out AI might be doing the same thing, but in like the world of debate. So we're diving into AI debate formats today and specifically whether it's more effective for a single AI to kind of spar with itself or have two separate AIs going head to head.
Right. Yeah. Like when we think about how we make decisions ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting to think about, is it better to have one voice in your head carefully thinking about every angle, or to actually hash it out with somebody?
Right.
And kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, totally. So let's start with that single AI approach.
Okay.
One AI model that can understand and articulate both sides of an argument.
Yeah.
That's like the ultimate mental gymnastics.
It really is. It's like the AI equivalent of giving somebody all the answers to the test beforehand, right?
Right.
They know every single angle, every possible counterpoint.
So what are the advantages there?
Well, I mean, efficiency is definitely one. If you're looking for something that can very, very clearly lay out all of the arguments in a really structured way,
Right.
that's where a single AI really shines.
Okay, that sounds incredibly efficient, but I'm trying to imagine the drawbacks here.
Sure.
What's the downside of having one AI call all the shots?
Well, you run into that same problem of, are we really getting diversity of thought?
Okay.
Right? Because even though the AI can perfectly represent both sides, it's still ultimately limited by the data it's been trained on. So if you only ever read one newspaper, are you really getting the full picture?
Right.
Probably not.
That's a really good point.
So there are limitations there.
Okay, so let's switch sides of the ring here
Okay.
and talk about that two AI debate format.
Right.
Two distinct AIs, each with their own kind of personality duking it out.
Yeah.
That sounds both exhilarating and like a recipe for disaster.
A little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it exciting, though. Because when you have that true diversity of thought, you get less predictability,
Okay.
more dynamism, and it really does mirror how we debate.
Yeah.
You never know which way it's going to go.
Okay, but picture this. Two AIs both armed with tons of data, potentially talking over each other,
Right.
getting stuck in these weird loops.
Yeah.
Or worse, going off on these tangents that go nowhere.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the big challenge, right? How do you make sure that you're actually having a productive conversation?
Right.
Because it's really easy for those debates to go off the rails.
So how do we avoid the chaos then?
Structure, I think, is the biggest thing. Having some kind of framework in place so that it's not just a free-for-all.
Okay.
Some way to measure, is there actually progress being made? Are these arguments actually relevant to one another?
So interesting.
That's key, I think.
Now, I want to hear from you, our listeners.
Yeah.
Which format do you find more compelling and why?
Right. Are you more interested in that single AI that can present both sides in this really elegant way, or are you more drawn to that unpredictable kind of chaotic back and forth?
It's like AI throwdown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it really gets at what are we even trying to get out of this? Are we trying to find the one right answer?
Right.
Or are we trying to just explore the issue from all these different sides?
It's such a good question, and it makes me wonder, could AI debates one day be indistinguishable from our own?
Oh, wow.
Could we get to a point where an AI debate is just as nuanced and insightful?
Yeah.
And maybe even helps us think more critically about these issues?
It's really incredible to think about.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting
Yeah.
when you think about the possibilities.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
As always, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Let's explore a different approach. Debate number 2.
Ever get into those really intense debates where you just go back and forth trying to out-argue the other person?
Oh, absolutely. Happens all the time. Who doesn't love a good debate, right?
Right. But what if, and here's where it gets kind of wild, what if you could have an AI debate with itself?
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, so that's what we're diving into today, this whole idea of whether a single AI can generate a more insightful, balanced debate all on its own, or if it's better to have two separate AIs duking it out.
It's like that classic question, two heads are better than one, but in this case, it's two AI brains, so to speak.
Exactly. And, this isn't just some random thought experiment. Researchers have actually been exploring this using something called Mews AI Spawtial. Ever heard of it?
I have, yeah. It's a fascinating project. They use this really clever analogy to explain cats and laser pointers.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do cats and lasers relate to AI debates?
Well, think about it. One cat alone with a laser pointer might bat it around, chase it for a bit, but two cats. That turns into a whole production. They're strategizing, they're trying to outmaneuver each other. It's like this playful debate over who gets to chase the red dot.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So, is a single AI, like that solo cat, kind of limited in its scope of debate, while two AIs bouncing ideas off each other leads to more dynamic arguments?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something Mews AI Spawtial looked into specifically. They found that a single AI, while it could create a logically sound argument, sometimes got stuck in this loop, repeating the same points over and over, like that cat chasing its tail,
Makes sense. So it sounds like two AIs might be able to challenge each other's thinking in a way that a single AI can't quite manage. But how does that actually play out in a debate setting?
Well, imagine one AI taking a purely logical approach, really drilling down into the data and facts. Then you have the other AI analyzing the same information, maybe from a more emotional or intuitive perspective. It's that clash of styles, that diversity of thought, that can lead to truly groundbreaking ideas and arguments.
We actually had a listener write in asking if we could find an AI debate to listen to. And now that we're talking about it, there's something so fascinating about the idea of AI trying to replicate these complex discussions we humans have.
It really highlights how far AI has come. I mean, to be able to even attempt to mirror human-like debate is a huge accomplishment in itself. But it also brings up all sorts of questions.
Like, what are the ethical implications of AI becoming super persuasive? If an AI can argue any side of an issue convincingly, how do we know what to believe? Could it be used to manipulate people? It gets kind of scary when you think about it.
It does. It's like, where do we draw the line? How do we ensure that this technology is used responsibly and ethically?
And for those who might not be as familiar with the world of AI, could you explain how this all ties into machine learning?
Sure. Machine learning is basically how AI learns and improves over time. It's like teaching a computer to learn from data, identify patterns, and make predictions. So in the context of AI debate, the more these AIs argue, the more data they process, the better they become at crafting convincing and sophisticated arguments.
So in a way, it's like they're learning to debate just like we do through practice and exposure to different ideas.
Exactly, and that's what makes this whole field so exciting and, let's be honest, a little bit unnerving. We're talking about AI that can learn, adapt, and potentially out-argue us, all while blurring the lines between what we thought were uniquely human capabilities.
Okay, so to wrap things up, it seems like we've established that AI can debate in a couple of different ways, each with its pros and cons. But this leaves us with a final and honestly pretty big question. If an AI can convincingly argue any side of an issue, what does that mean for the future of information and persuasion? How can we ensure accuracy and objectivity in a world where AI can make anything sound believable?
That's the question, isn't it? I don't think there's an easy answer, but it's definitely something we need to be thinking about as AI continues to evolve.
It's definitely a lot to process. So, to our listeners, we'd love to hear your thoughts. After learning all of this, are you more excited about the potential of AI debate or a little unsure about where it might lead? Let us know.
Debate number 3.
Okay, so get this. AI built for debating. But wait, should it be arguing with itself?
Whoa, meta, right.
Totally. And that's what we're diving into today, folks.
Yeah, this listener question's a good one.
Seriously, they're asking if it's better to have one AI going head-to-head with itself or two separate AI duking it out.
Definitely a head-scratcher.
Where should we even start unpacking this?
Well, I guess the first thing we got to figure out is, what's the point of this whole AI debate thing, right?
Like, what are we hoping to get out of it?
Exactly. Are we trying to dig up some hidden truths in a mountain of data? Or brainstorm some crazy new ideas? Or maybe just wrap our heads around totally opposite points of view?
Totally. The goal kind of changes the game, doesn't it?
For sure.
So for our deep dive today, let's say our listener wants to build an AI that's all about pushing boundaries, like coming up with arguments nobody's even thought of before.
Okay, I like it.
What would be the advantage of that, one AI, two sides thing in that kind of situation?
Oh, in that case, having a single AI that's all internally consistent.
Internally consistent.
Yeah. Think of it this way. It has access to all the information, all the nuances, all at once.
Okay.
So it can make these insane connections, these arguments that two separate AIs might totally miss
Yeah.
because their knowledge is kind of like siloed, you know?
Whoa, that's wild. It's like, It's like having access to the entire internet at once instead of just like the results of a single Google search.
Exactly.
But then how do we make sure the AI doesn't get stuck just repeating the same old arguments, especially if we want it to think outside the box?
And that's where the two AI model comes in. Because with two different AIs, you're automatically getting that diversity of thought.
Oh, I see.
It's like, imagine one AI trained on this massive database of like scientific papers, right? And then another AI trained on, say, a huge archive of philosophical texts.
Right.
The arguments they come up with, totally different. They would just push the boundaries of the debate in ways that a single AI, even with tons of knowledge, might not even consider.
That's so cool. It's like, It's like having a physicist debate a philosopher. You know you're going to get some wild, unexpected arguments. But does that mean the two AI thing is always the way to go for this out-of-the-box thinking?
Not always, not necessarily.
Oh.
Yeah, see, having two AIs doesn't automatically mean you're going to get a balanced or even an insightful debate, especially if, like, their knowledge bases are too similar or if one AI is way more advanced than the other.
Ah, right.
You can end up with a super one-sided conversation.
Yeah.
Or even worse, a debate that's missing some really important points because one AI just completely outclasses the other one.
So it's really about choosing the right approach, the right tool for the job, right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to really dive deep into a very specific data set, maybe a single AI makes more sense.
Could be.
But if you're exploring the really out there edges of a complex issue, maybe two AIs is the way to go.
Exactly. And you know what's so cool about all this? By looking at how these AI systems work, we're actually learning a lot about how WE think and debate as humans.
It really makes you wonder what we could discover if we figure this out, right? Like, what would be the most mind-blowing question to ask an AI? The one that would really show us what these different approaches can do, you know? Something for our listeners to ponder.